Well, we have a lot to cover today, so people may still be coming in, but I'm going to get us started on a really important Ask the Expert. So thank you all for joining us. I'm Catherine, the program coordinator for the National Aphasia Association. The National Aphasia Association is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to promote public awareness and understanding of aphasia, to promote research that aims to improve the lives of people with aphasia, and to provide support to all people with aphasia and their care partners. Today's Ask the Expert is honoring the legacy of Dr. Davetrina Seles Gadson, revisiting the wisdom and mission of true health equity in the aphasia community. And actually, an exciting announcement to continue to honor her impact on the aphasia community. Each year, our February Ask the Expert will be in her memory and on the topic of health equity.
Come through.
So, first, a few quick webinar tips and reminders. If it's helpful, please turn on closed captions by selecting Show Captions on your Zoom toolbar. And there's different settings, like you can pick what language to listen to or increase the font size. So definitely check that out if that's helpful. You can write your questions about today's topic in the Q&A section. And then, of course, say hello or add a comment in the chat. We have a lot of QR codes on the presentation. So you can use your smartphone camera when you see these on the screen to view that link or resource. So for example, this one here, if you took your camera up to it, it would take you to the NAA website. We will also be sharing a lot of the key links in the chat for those of you who are here live. And then again, those of you who are here live know this, but we have a new day and time for Ask the Expert this year. We're now meeting the second Wednesday of the month from 12 to 1 p.m. And we actually have a lot of programming now. Wednesdays 12 to 1. We have Ask the Expert the second Wednesday, our interactive educational virtual program after the expert is the third Wednesday of the month. And then the fourth Wednesday of the month, we're continuing our Lunch and Learn program. And then we want to make sure you save the date. The Night of Aphasia Arts will be Wednesday, March 25th. And you can still submit your art. The deadline is Monday, February 24th. This is always a wonderful event, and we would love to see all of your art. So please submit it, and then we hope to see you at that in March. So we're going to try to answer as many of your questions as we can today, but if we don't get to one of your questions, please email the NAA at answers@aphasia.org, or next week, join our After the Expert program. And this is going to be a fun one next week. In honor of Dr. Seles and her love of interactive games during virtual programs, we are planning to have a Jeopardy program, so don't miss it. And then we are now offering professional development hours for speech language pathologists who attend this webinar live. So we will send the link, share the link in the comments at the end. Today's Ask the Expert is slightly different than some of our others, so I just wanted to share the plan. I'll be quickly introducing Maura and Angie, who are here with me today. Then we will be focusing on remembering Dr. Seles. Well, we will re-watch some clips from the February 2024 Ask the Expert webinar, which focused on clinical diversity issues in aphasia, and we'll be sharing or spotlighting Dr. Seles's presentation and some of the conversations that the experts that evening had. Then we have some really wonderful reflections from those who knew and were influenced by Dr. Seles we will share. We have an exciting update about a new health equity page on the NAA's website. We will be sharing about the grant programs in her honor. This QR code leads to the NAA's donation page, and we encourage you to donate. And actually, Maura can keep an eye and let us know if anyone donates during this webinar today. But We just closed out the mini grant application and we had 12 people apply. So any extra funding that we can get would be amazing. So last but not least, with the time we have left, we're going to talk about what can we each do to promote health equity for people with aphasia. It's a lot of stuff. So quickly, we have Maura. She's the executive director of the NAA with a background as a speech language pathologist. She started a nonprofit in North Carolina called the Triangle Aphasia Project. And in addition to being an SLP specializing in helping people with aphasia, she became a caregiver for her own mother, who developed aphasia after a stroke. So thank you, Maura, for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And then we also have Angie. Angie is dedicated to making a difference in the lives of people with aphasia, and she does that in a myriad of ways. Angie had 2 strokes in 2017, but before that, she was a finance professional for over 20 years. So she has co-founded and she's the president of the ARCH Network, which is the Aphasia Resource Collaboration Hub. She is a founding board member of National Aphasia Synergy. She is a board member of the National Aphasia Association, co-leader of the NAA's Black American Aphasia Connection Group. She's an aphasia advocate ambassador at Temple University's Safran Center for Cognitive Neuroscience. And then Maura and Angie were both sharing their shirts, but Angie co-hosted and continues to host the Brain Friends podcast with Dr. Seles. This podcast has reached listeners in over 90 countries and focuses on stroke and aphasia. So be sure to listen to that. And Angie was also our recipient of the 2024 Martha Taylor Sarno Advocacy Award. Here she is. And what better way to just briefly talk about that than to share the video that Dr. Seles created in her honor for that webinar. So let's take a listen.
Hey Angie, Dr. Seles here. Congratulations on receiving this prestigious award for all of your hard work in promoting public awareness and understanding of aphasia. Who would have thought that when we started our podcast that we would be in over 72 countries spreading awareness and talking about topics that matter to survivors with aphasia. I'm so honored to be your co-host and share such an amazing platform with you, but most importantly, I'm so proud of your humor, your motivation, your tenacity and resilience in doing things that matter to you, but also in helping individuals. I'm so excited about all of the amazing things that you will continue to do with art and your key lectures, and just how you continue to motivate me to be my best self. Thank you again for everything that you do. We are so grateful to have you, and yeah, you're the real deal. Love you.
And so we'll be hearing more from Maura and Angie as we continue the webinar. So as we said, this webinar is in memory of Dr. Davetrina Seles Gadson, and we really want to celebrate her memory and her impact on the aphasia community and her work in diversity and treating each person with aphasia as one person with aphasia and really thinking about how we can best support that person. And so we'll be hearing about her from all these tributes that we're going to be sharing, but we wanted to quickly just share a bio for those of you who are still learning about her. So Dr. Davetrina Seles Gadson was a neuroscientist and ASHA certified speech language pathologist with expertise in adult neurological rehabilitation and health outcomes research. She made history as the first Black American to graduate with a PhD in communication sciences and disorders from the University of Georgia. As a clinical researcher, she was interested in health equity in aphasia and the influence of health disparities on minority stroke and cancer survivors. She studied how to connect science and research to policy at the at the National Institute of Health, including patient engagement in cancer therapeutic clinical trials. Dr. Seles was also the creator and co-host of the Brain Friends podcast, a space for neuro nerds and stroke survivors to talk all things aphasia, language recovery, and community. And you can learn a lot more about her by visiting either of these tribute pages. The Cognitive Recovery Lab also has a neat video that speaks to who she was that's worth watching. And then the National Cancer Institute as well. And here we wanted to share a video that's actually on the American Speech Language Hearing website. And it's her voice talking about what it means for her to be a speech language pathologist.
I became an SLP because I knew that there was diversity in this field, and I knew that I would have the opportunity to help people communicate. 8 years now in this profession, I wouldn't have it any other way. My name is Davetrina Seles Gadson, and I am a speech language pathologist. One thing that I really enjoy about my day is that it's definitely not routine.
You'll say them and then I'll repeat them after you.
From working with patients with voice disorders to neurological disabilities and speech to swallowing. Sometimes it might include community outings or working with other therapists to make sure that we're treating the entire patient. One of the most exciting experiences that I've had is working as a travel SLP. I've lived in Chicago, I've lived in Dallas. So just having that opportunity as well as building my career is something that this field has afforded me. My patients inspire me. They have a magnificent ability to be resilient. So Tajay is a 19-year-old college student who had a brain tumor. One thing that prompted this type of outing is that Tajay expressed that she likes to eat out a lot, but friends and family were ordering for her because of her fear of not being understood. So today was a perfect opportunity to take her out, have her order for herself, and build that confidence that she is intelligible and people understand her. Knowing that Tajay is so close to returning to college and the community is such a rewarding feeling that it's hard to put in words. She is an amazing person, and to have met her at this junction of her life is, I think, more beneficial to me than her. Yeah.
So again, just a taste of the impact that the field of speech language pathology and her patients had on her. And then we have a quick clip here. You'll recognize these faces talking about something I already mentioned. So have a watch.
This was so good. No, seriously, like just even, ending in that way. When you see one person with aphasia, it's one person with aphasia. And I'm thinking about even going to my local grocery store and, asking, because the only thing they could do is say no. But I could ask them every year. To bring awareness, and I challenge other individuals to really do something different for this month to help bring awareness of aphasia to your community and beyond.
And that's a clip from the Brain Friends podcast. So again, go check it out. So as I mentioned, we are going to share now a few clips from the Ask the Expert webinar that we had in February of 2024. Dr. Seles and Angie were both experts. Also, Dr. Charles Ellis. You can scan this QR code or go to our website or YouTube channel to watch the whole webinar at some point. But today we're just going to share a few clips, and we are going to start with Dr. Seles's presentation. This is about 12 minutes long. And Dr. Seles is going to kick it off for us tonight.
Yes, thank you so much for having us today.
Let me start the presentation. Okay. So you've gotten my introduction and so excited to be here with you all today. A little bit about me. I co-host a Brain Friends podcast with Angie, which started as a way to really disseminate science. I was getting a little discouraged with the rejection letters of manuscripts and grants, and I just wanted to talk with people with aphasia, and our conversations were so informative that we started a podcast. I'm also a speech language pathologist and a plant parent. I didn't become a parent until 2011 when I had a patient named Miss Pat. And Miss Pat was an African American female. She had heart disease. She had had 2 strokes and with no residual deficits until her stroke. And she was diagnosed with left temporal parietal infarct, what left her with aphasia. And so this is a picture of a plant that Miss Pat taught me how to plant as part of our therapy activity. And so her role with someone with Wernicke's aphasia was to help me plant this plant, pot this plant, and as part of our therapy. And in 2019, this is now Miss Pat. Miss Pat grew so much that I had to divide her into 2 separate containers, which really started the blooming of my research and how I understood that individuals with aphasia can really teach us a lot. And so when we think about cultural and clinical diversity issues in aphasia, it really starts at the stroke. So we know that minority and lower earning socioeconomic groups have a higher stroke occurrence. They're less likely to be treated with TPA, which is a clot busting drug, due to delayed hospital arrival or stroke severity. And their access to rehabilitation also is influenced where individuals that are higher income earners often have greater resources like speech therapy or advanced hospital resources. So this led me to really want to understand what disparities we also have in aphasia. And we found that Black stroke survivors with aphasia have lower behavioral performance than white stroke survivors with aphasia. And I wanted to know a little bit more about this. We know that some of this is due to what they consider upstream factors. So things such as food deserts, lack of neighborhood walkability, fewer pharmacies, and even supermarkets. I live here in Washington, D.C., and this is a map of the District of Columbia here. And the areas in red are areas with fewer supermarket locations, lower household income, and transportation access. These areas, which are wards 7 and 8, are predominantly occupied by Black Americans or individuals of African descent. I did my postdoc at Georgetown University, and one of the things that we studied was why was the aphasia severity different? And we found that the aphasia severity was modulated by the race and the lesion size of these individuals, meaning that although Black and white stroke survivors had the same area of damage, meaning aphasia is going to be in that left hemisphere of the brain, Black stroke survivors had a larger lesion size, which you see right here, and even the median income for Black individuals was lower than white individuals. The other thing that I found, which was really interesting, was that there was a baseline difference on the Western Aphasia Battery of where Black individuals at baseline scored 69, where white individuals had a median of 75. And so this baseline difference was also something that was interesting. And so what we found was that the interaction, trying to move my screen here. What we found was that race and lesion size influence an individual's aphasia severity. So if we look here, we see that Black and white stroke survivors with smaller lesions performed similarly on the Western Aphasia Battery, but larger strokes resulted in a more severe damage than in Black people with aphasia than white individuals with aphasia. And so this was an interaction between an individual's race and their lesion size. So even though Black individuals may have had a large stroke, they still performed worse than white stroke survivors that had a larger stroke. And so we had a couple of suggestions on why this could happen. So this is a picture of the picnic scene in, let's see. Okay, so this is a picture of the Western Aphasia Battery picnic scene, which often individuals are asked to describe as part of the assessment battery. And so one of the things that we suggested and why we were seeing this difference in disparity between Black and white stroke survivors was that there was an assessment bias in aphasia outcomes that become more evident with larger strokes due to the cognitive load. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. So, is there a cognitive load when you're code switching? So, I Googled picnic, white picnic, and this picture came up here, which resembles a lot of the Western Aphasia Battery picture. You have a slide, you have water, here are the kites. And then when I Googled Black picnic, this is what came up. And this is a little bit more familiar of what I was exposed to growing up. You have the water here, you have Uncle Ray on the grill here. And so there is this idea that some of this disparity that we see in our assessment outcomes could be due to an assessment bias. And so in turn, a picture description task that does not include semantic experiences that are relevant to the client may decrease the use of available language. And so one of the things that I talk a lot to our clinicians about is really understanding the cultural experiences and narratives of some Black stroke survivors. So if we think about what we know as individuals that have lived in America, individuals between the age of 20 to 84 grew up around this area here. And so the civil rights movement, some may have even grown up during segregation. And so we have to recognize when we're working with Black stroke survivors that there may be a level of medical mistrust, that in the field of speech pathology, we know that there's a lack of clinician race concordance, as Black clinicians are 3.6% of the profession, or only 3% of the SLPs identify as Black. And so I tell this story about how I was a clinical supervisor. I did my PhD at the University of Georgia. And one of the students remarked on how the client didn't make eye contact with her. And she was ready to mark that as a deficit. And I had to remind her that during the time, because it was an older gentleman, during that time, making eye contact with a white person could get you killed. And so sometimes we have to recognize that it may not be due to deficit, but because of the culture. Lastly, I want to share a study that I did with you as part of my dissertation study, where we looked at the relationship between health-related quality of life and social support in African Americans. I wanted to know, does aphasia affect health-related quality of life differently depending on the individual's social support or social network? And it was a homogeneous sample of Black Americans. We had 13 stroke survivors with aphasia, without aphasia, and then normal aging individuals. And we found that there was no difference in social network between the stroke survivors and the healthy aging, and that a small social network size was normal for Black Americans, and that aphasia does not predict a social network size. And so what this means clinically is that communication should be targeted in social context to support health-related quality of life in African Americans with aphasia. And I want to leave you with this. Training must extend beyond African American English and acceptance of dialectal differences to comprehension, competency, or humility of real differences and experiences that are unique to minoritized groups. I think that that was one of the reasons why when I met Angie, we bonded so well, was because her story was so in line with not only what the research showed, but also what I knew of some of the patients that I had. Thank you so much, and I'm excited for questions.
All right.
That was wonderful.
It really was wonderful. And
That was
again,
wonderful.
you can watch the entire webinar on our website or YouTube channel. But yeah, in that just 12 minutes, so much really powerful, impactful information shared. And again, remember, she was doing groundbreaking research. This research had not really been done before. So next, we are going to share a conversation as part of the Q&A about clinical inclusive aphasia rehabilitation tools. So you'll get to hear the question that we got about this and the response from our experts. So one question I'll open up to the panel. Someone submitted the question, what is the roadmap like for aphasia rehabilitation tools that are inclusive of an other than white middle-class patient? And they gave some examples of barriers. Most resources are in English and assume a Western upbringing. Speech therapists may approach with a one-size-fits-all mentality. Comorbidities. So thoughts?
Yeah, that's a big question. I would say I would say there's probably no roadmap, and so I'll have to wait to hear from my co-presenters here. I would say that there's not a roadmap. That there's definitely good intentions to think about some of the diversity issues that exist in aphasia, but I think we've been at the talking stage for a long time. In 2000, we said in 2030, we're going to be a very more diverse country. And now we're almost at 2030. We're 6 years away. So now we're talking about 2050. And in that 24-year time period, we have had a lot of discussions about these issues, but not a lot of movement in terms of developing new assessment approaches, not a lot of movement in thinking about the differences in beliefs and attitudes of people from different population groups and how that translates into patient-provider interactions. We have made some improvements of documenting pretty clearly that there are differences between people based on race and sex and gender, that we know that recovery patterns for women oftentimes can look very different than recovery patterns for men with the same type of stroke or the same type of aphasia. So it's but I still think we're on the front end of just understanding the complexity of aphasia that derives from a very complex condition, which is stroke, which is tied into kind of the life course, that people don't just wake up one day and have a stroke, that we've learned that there's a process that takes you there. So I'm going to stop right there and get some, but that's a big question.
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I think is important and often underutilized is patient-reported outcomes. When I was a clinician, and I didn't learn this as much going through the process, which is that, you have insurance demands, you have all these other factors that come into play. And so a survivor may not have the opportunity to go through your entire battery or get to whatever goals you as the clinician, feel are important before their insurance dollars run out. And so I think sometimes, checking in with the patient, doing those patient reported outcomes and having them decide what are some things they want to be able to do, whether it's talk on the phone or read a Bible scripture out loud at church or whatever it is, and then gearing your therapy toward that, I think can be a positive indicator and create a level of success for survivors.
I think there's still a lot to be understood. And I know that there are clinicians on here, researchers, and we've seen the evidence-based triangle for the last 25 or 30 years. And one side of that triangle is patient beliefs and attitudes. And that rarely gets integrated into the treatment approach, or integrated into the current state of the evidence that we have today. Because one, it's very difficult to understand beliefs and attitudes, because it's oftentimes more important of what the person is not saying than what they're saying. That gives you some insights into their beliefs and attitudes.
Angie, you talk a lot about that. I know you've said that before, that with aphasia, it's not so much what you know, it's what you can prove that you know.
That's right. And you can set me on that as well. No, but it does come down to, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove you know. And back to the person's question, I would say you can always, which Dr. Celeste taught me, you can change your person. If
Yeah.
you're not getting what you want from your provider, then you can make a change to make them different. Call and ask for what you want. I mean, you might get lucky and get the person that speaks your native tongue. I mean, aphasia, to have a person that you don't even vibe with, it's one thing to not to care for them or not to like them, but it's a whole nother thing if you have a complete disconnect, because you're already disconnected. You should not have to fight that fight as well. So that's got to be a definite challenge, but my recommendation would be to make that change. And it is true, you are judged by not what you know, but what you can prove you know. And with aphasia, I can't prove I know anything. There's no proof. I can't prove I know how to add $10 to this tip. Either I can add $10 to $84 or I can't. And they're like, see, she don't know. So
I think that's a
that was
very
just
powerful
brilliant on
statement
my part,
to
real quick. Sorry.
explain to people with aphasia that they do have a choice. I think in healthcare relationships or interactions, we oftentimes feel we're at the mercy of the system. And that's not always the case. Probably not. It's probably rarely that it's the case. We just don't know that we have options. It goes right back to treat the person the way you would my mom or grandma. I've been married a long time. I have fired my wife's doctors, many of them, because I didn't like the way that they approached her or handled her. I don't necessarily recommend that everyone on this call do that, but I would, I do those kind of things for people that I love.
I
So
love that.
you do have a choice.
Yeah. And again, it's about recognizing when Dr. Celeste mentioned it to me, she was like, well, you could have just left. And I'm like, I could have? I had no idea. And my husband works for the insurance company. He works for a large insurer for a long time. But it didn't even dawn on me. But it was such a hard time to even get the appointments. But again, while you're mid-avalanche, while you're mid-storm coming out of this aphasia fog, this brain fog you're in, you don't even know that you don't really like the lady or that she's not connecting with you. You don't even have enough to make that assessment, so.
And I think for our clinician family out there too, that's not being critical. If I'm working with a client, I don't want to be fired by a client. I want them to feel that I am giving everything that I know about this. So I don't want to be fired. So it's not being, but sometimes we can be so focused on the thing that we're focused on that we're not focused on the person.
Right.
And oftentimes that's where the rapport is built, the bridge is built, and where the magic happens for the aphasia outcome.
Yeah. Say pancake.
Exactly.
That was her thing. Say, I'm in there with all kinds of problems, and say pancake.
All right. One last Q&A about increasing diversity of speech therapists. This video is a bit shorter. Let's take a watch. We have another question from someone in our audience. What efforts are happening to attract persons of color, and we can probably expand an even more, diverse group of people into the speech therapy field? Any thoughts?
Dr. Alice, you go.
I knew that was going to fall to me. I think it's a hard question to answer. I think our national organization ASHA's, they've been talking about this since I've been in the profession and been doing, and they're great programs out there. But I think because some of the things that or the conditions that we work with, like aphasia, is considered like low prevalence and low incidence relative to the number of people with diabetes or that have heart attacks. But the impact is significant. So it may not be happening as frequently as with the number of people with diabetes, but the impact, because communication is our gateway to independence. It really is. If you can communicate, then you can take advantage of a lot of ADA laws because they're designed to deal with kind of the physical aspect. But once you lose the communication, it eliminates, it creates barriers even for something that's very positive. So I think the push has to be much earlier than trying to find juniors and seniors to go into graduate programs, that people have to be exposed to it in the high schools and definitely as freshmen. And we're dealing with that here at UF, and I'm scared to death that students are going to come into the major as freshmen without a clear understanding of where this is all going, but at the same time, that's exactly what we need to happen so that they can have the exposures to make more informed decisions. I think the other part of it is kind of what we're doing right now, that if you're trying to diversify something, then people have to see diversity. They just do. And so the whole process becomes very difficult, and it can appear that there's no one doing anything, but people are doing a lot. We just haven't found the right kind of combination of ways to increase diversity.
Mhm. And I'll add to that. I would say for Black speech pathologists that are there or members of underrepresented groups to reach out. I know when I met Angie, she said that I was the first Black speech pathologist that she met. And I was like, what, really? And even when I was getting my PhD at the University of Georgia, I actually met a linguistics major in Sephora, and we were talking, and she was like, I wanted to be a speech pathologist, but I applied several times and I never got in. And I invited her to help me collect my dissertation research. And so that was her first time getting exposure to people with aphasia. She took my research seminar course. And then, even in applying to grad school, she was able to get into a speech pathology program, a master's program. And that experience that she had as a linguistics major, but working closely with me with speech pathology students, was very, very beneficial to her. And so I would say, reach back and definitely mentor.
That's one.
All right. So Maura is now going to share some of the reflections that we received by those who knew Dr. Seles.
Yes. For this special webinar, we reached out to people who knew Dr. Seles, felt the loss of her in this world. And from what we just saw, we know why. I think that before I press play on a couple, or have Catherine press play on a couple of these, I wanted to point out a couple of those statistics and how important they are. If 8 to 10% of speech pathologists consider themselves racially diverse, and only 3.6% are persons of color, are Black Americans in the United States, it's still a huge problem. And I think that you have to tie that in with Black adults are 50-ish% more likely to have strokes than their white counterpart, and second strokes. So tying all that in with what Charles said too, Dr. Ellis said, we're at the talking stage. I think what Celeste did for us, certainly did for me after I was done fangirling her, is she did two things. One is she empowered people with aphasia to ask for what they needed, like Angie was saying. And if that could be even just that was enough. But number two, she not being here now, this allows us to carry her torch forward. And it makes us, it's a calling to us to make a difference. And every one of us can do something to help with this. And I think the impact statement you're going to hear now is just proof of that. But of course, the first person that we needed to connect with was Dr. Celeste's mother. So here's Shavana.
Good afternoon. My name is Giovanna McNeil. I am Dr. Davetrina Seles Gadson's mother. As you can tell, I am supporting one of their memorabilia from the Brain Friends. The podcast itself is very educational.
Just really quick, I know this one's quiet, so turn up your volume. We aren't able to turn it up on our end.
Daughter,
back just a little bit. Start hers again. Whoop. Here we go.
Good afternoon. My name is Giovanna McNeil. I am Dr. Davetrina Seles Gadson's mother. As you can tell, I am supporting one of their memorabilia from the Brain Friends. The podcast itself is very educational. My daughter, Dr. Davetrina Seles Gadson, was a pioneer in her own right. She did a lot of good things. She was like the first to graduate from the University of Georgia in her field, and it's hard to go on without her. I miss her a lot. But this is about the joy and the all of the information that she has left, her legacy on aphasia. She has written several papers. You can also go on her website or Google her, and you can see everything that she has done. She's been a pioneer in this field. I love and miss my baby, but her legacy will live on forever through what Angie is doing through the podcast Brain Friends, through her legacy at NIH, through the University of Georgia, through the Georgetown University with Dr. Peter Turkeltoff, and all of the scholarships that are being given in her honor and in her name. So look on the, go to the podcast, Brain Friends. Angie has all of that information where you can donate to her, to some of the grants that are being given out in her name to keep her legacy going. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to just speak a little bit about my daughter. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanna. And obviously, she also knows that her legacy carries on through the work that we do. One of the people influenced by Dr. Seles is Nikki Benson Waddington, and she helps us with our back group and is a huge advocate for people with aphasia and just an amazing person. She states, Dr. Davetrina Seles Gadson was one of the most regal women I've met in my life. Her entire way of being was royal. She was literally the smartest person in the room, and yet remained one of the most humble, focused, compassionate, and approachable people there as well. Her passion to not only improve the lives of people impacted by aphasia, but to also ensure that data was generated through research to verify the well-known yet too often glossed disparities of healthcare in communities of color was a brilliant, selfless use of her talents, gifts, and voice. One thing we can do to remain intentional about keeping her legacy alive. Her research was her child, and we can nurture it through continuing the studies, creating bridge opportunities for speech pathologists and rising speech pathologists of color, and ensuring speech and language services become increasingly equitable and accessible for people of color. And of course, Angie had some input as well. Angie?
There's no Brain Friends without Dr. Seles. She was not just my co-host, she was my co-strategist, my co-conspirator, my co-dreamer, and my sister. But more than that, Dr. Davetrina Seles Gadson was a scholar who shifted this field. Her work on equity in aphasia care made us all ask, who's being left out the conversation? And more importantly, what are we going to do about it? She was never here for performative anything. She gave us accountability for cultural responsive care, for making research mean something real in people's lives. The idea that stuck with me the most was her insistence that patient-reported outcomes what we say, what we experience, and what matters to us should matter just as much as any assessment. She taught me that the data without community is empty, and that being Black with aphasia should not mean being invisible. So what can we do? If you're a provider, decenter yourself. Let the patient lead. Ask them what is important to them, and build equity in your practice, not just in your paperwork. If you're living with aphasia, advocate when you can, rest when you must, and know that people like Celeste fought for you and that I still am. With Brain Friends, I get to carry her mission forward, turning confusion into clarity, isolation into access, and pain into purpose. This work is hers. I'm just holding the mic. I love you, Celeste. I miss you. Your legacy lives on in every voice that refuses to be silenced. I'm Angie Cauthorn. Brain Friends.
If I had a mic, I would drop it because that was beautiful, Angie. We have heard Dr. Turkeltaub's name several times. He is a past board member for the NAA and also is on a professional advisory council. And he had to say, I had the privilege of working with Celeste when she was a postdoc and then an instructor of rehab medicine at Georgetown. Celeste was a cheerleader for patient-reported outcome measures, which reflect the values and priorities of people with aphasia themselves. I had always worried that these measures were subjective and not as rigorous as objective tests like the Western Aphasia Battery. Then one day, Celeste called the Western Aphasia Battery a clinician-reported outcome measure, and it was like an epiphany. My objective tests aren't truly objective. They reflect the biases of people who made the test and the person who administers it and scores it. Through hundreds of daily interactions like this, Celeste changed the way I think about aphasia recovery, focusing on person-centered care and research. Dr. Ellis had a few words to share as well.
I'm very honored to share some thoughts about Dr. Celeste because she's a person that had a really big and positive impact on my career. I met her as a doctoral student, and I was pretty far into my own career, and the energy that she exuded and really asking me for help in understanding these many aspects of aphasia had a profound impact on me. In addition, she saw the plight of people with aphasia in a very different way than I did. I probably was too focused as a clinician and an emerging researcher and didn't see the bigger picture that she saw with them and in the way that she saw them. If I had to think about what idea from her and our many discussions that stay with me is really thinking beyond the clinic and thinking beyond research, that her thoughts about people with aphasia were broad, and they were focused on understanding things like quality of life and the other more meaningful ways of measuring communication beyond just the level of impairment, that she really wanted to make a huge difference for them in their own settings. Along those same lines, if I had to think about one action I think that we could take as a profession to help people with aphasia, is to understand that people are very complex. And when you take complex people and add in a complex issue like communication that's now disrupted because of some neurological event, it creates kind of a cascading effect of many issues. It's the complexity of the people is now intersecting with the complexity of communication in a very complex world. And that as clinicians and researchers and supporters of people with aphasia, we have to accept that complexity and try to find ways to unravel it so that we can get the best outcomes possible.
And we do know that we're running up against time, but these are some very important pieces of this. So we will be going over. We do hope you can stay, but if not, you know that it is recorded. We have lots more to share with you, but we won't keep you past about 10 more minutes. Dr. Andrew DeMarco said, I miss Celeste. We began working together as postdocs at Georgetown in 2019, and we were office neighbors when she left to start her AAAS fellowship in 2023. She has left a lasting mark on me. Specifically, she is a reminder to me as an aphasia scientist that we can't just get it all from literature, that there are individuals who drive our science forward, and without them, our research can stagnate. Celeste was one of those people who drove us forward. She couldn't help it. Instead of just pondering over theory, she looked around her and asked, how can we use these tools to tackle real-world issues facing our field? I'm very glad that Celeste's memory will support others in the form of this Healthy Equity Grant Program. I hope the program will carry forward Celeste's instinct to connect science to real people and meaningful impact. Dee from DC had this to say.
I met Celeste in our DMV area aphasia group, a conversation group, our Zoom. We talked about everything like every week, once a week. But when we talked about playing games, she always wanted to play Jeopardy or something trivia related. She was so excited to create the questions and run the game. She always had an aphasia category for us to answer questions for. I never knew all of the answers from those questions. I always learned something new that game. Seems like she enjoyed talking about this frustrating language condition we have. I mean, that's great. Someone needs to do that because we need all the help we can get to improve and get better. And she was one of those people, and we miss her for that. Celeste once mentioned to me that having a person with aphasia lead another aphasia group or Zoom is a good thing. It's a good idea. It can motivate or show folks to a way to get their words out if they want to, you know. I led a weekly aphasia bingo game. I didn't do anything fancy but play a simple game, but I tried to challenge ourselves with bingo cards that had multiple words and or numbers on the cards to say. It was very fun. A lot of people were using their voice and saying words more than before, so that was cool. I usually just sounded out the first one or two letters and or told them the number of syllables the word has. Or I helped by breaking down the word like entertain, something like that. It helped me and other people get their words out. That was very cool. When I told her that, she said those were good strategies in my toolkit, and that felt very good to hear that from a professional PhD speech language pathologist. Celeste, she rocked so much. Continue being in peace, being in power, and being in passion for aphasia research, equity, and advocacy. Bye-bye.
Indeed, a rock star. And Rashim, author, has stated Dr. Gadson has always been working on communication way before she became a doctor. Case in point, she helped me. I was recluse and unable to articulate myself in new environments. As a young man just joining SCSU cheerleading squad, I only wore headphones and stood off to the side away from everything and everyone. Dr. Gadson came and communicated with me and made me feel more comfortable in my surroundings. This is just a small example of her genuine personality as she continued to grow professionally, helping many others with the ability to communicate better after their aphasia journey.
Hi, my name
Veronica
is
Edwards
Veronica
shares.
Edwards. I was good friends with Dr. Seles Gadson for almost 20 years. I had the privilege of seeing her journey at UGA, Go Dogs, where she had obtained her PhD, and she was actually the first African American to obtain a PhD in the field that she obtained it in. Wow. So today, the biggest thing that I want to say about Dr. Seles Gadson was just her unwavering commitment to dismantling the disparities for underserved communities when it came to aphasia care. As you can see, I was a fan of Brain Friends, the amazing podcast that she also had with good friend Angie that is there with you guys today. And so action items I would definitely say for those that are listening is to just listen to folks, individuals, families that are dealing with aphasia, and help them with removing any barriers to getting the care that they need. That is something that Dr. Seles Gadson was all about, making accessible care for everybody dealing with aphasia, regardless of your skin color, how much money you have in the bank, where you live. It's all about equity, making that care equal for all. So thank you guys so much for honoring my very good friend who I miss so much, but I know her legacy will continue on.
Dr. Arnett said, my name is Dr. Arnett, and I had the pleasure of knowing Dr. Gadson for 23 years. We met at South Carolina State University in 2002 and remained close friends until her passing in 2025. I had the honor of growing alongside her from our teenage years into adulthood, witnessing her evolution, determination, and unwavering purpose. Two of Dr. Gadson's guiding affirmations that deeply resonate with me are: number one, make your dreams a reality. Number two, shine on purpose, unapologetically. From the time we were teenagers through adulthood, Trina lived by the motto, make your dreams your reality, and she truly embodied it. Nearly everything she has aspired, sorry, the thing went up here, to become, to achieve, manifested in her life. From becoming the first African American to earn a PhD in communication sciences and disorders at the University of Georgia in 2019, to traveling solo to Bali. Trina's dreams became her reality, and she did it all while looking amazing every step of the way. Trina, thank you for being you and imparting your love, wisdom, and style with me, family and friends, clients and colleagues, and the viewers of Brain Friends. Miss you, my friend. And finally, Kara Fowler stated, while watching Ask the Expert, Dr. Gadson reminds us that health equity means eliminating unfair or avoidable differences in health outcomes. One action we can take is to center communication access by meeting individuals where they are, not where systems expect them to be. This means adapting language, pace, and tools so every person can fully participate in decisions about their care. Equity in the aphasia journey begins when we remove barriers and honor each person's voice as valid and essential. One of the things that we wanted to mention was that we have been looking since her passing at ways to honor this work and to carry her torch forward. And she wrote an amazing article in Aphasiology. We have a link to it on our website, and it shares 8 beliefs that she thought of to have speech pathologists contribute to health equity. And you can see those right here. These were then added to a initiative of getting people to find out, is there projects that you would like to do that meet one of these initiatives? There's also a podcast view of a podcast from Brain Friends that discussed ways of contributing to health and equity.
We have 2 short clips here. Oh, we'd love to share, to hear her voice once more.
Yep.
Because sometimes people want practitioners that look like them.
Makes you feel better.
Okay. Research.
Come through.
Having representation and research and sharing your findings back with the community.
Indeed.
Health literacy, so people can be able to make informed decisions, and then patient reported outcomes.
Come through.
Okay, because it's not about you. We don't, we want to know what the individual wants to be able to do.
Can somebody talk to me about how I feel?
The other thing when we talk about research too is, and this is a question for the researchers, how many times are you going into these communities wanting to do minority research? Because right now that's what's getting funded a lot. So everybody wants to do minority research, but you're doing the minority research, but are you going back into that community and sharing your results, sharing your findings? Or are you just going in, collecting the data, and then they don't hear from you anymore?
So we have, thanks to Catherine, who collected lots of information for our website under the Living with Aphasia, we have a new section called Health Equity in Aphasia. And you can use the QR code or just go to our website. There's some video, there's some information about health equity. And one of the things that we want to really point out here is these are actionable items. There's action item ideas right on there of things that we can do. And I concur, Kitty. It was amazing to get to meet her, but wouldn't it be cool if she got to be here longer for us to get to know her? We had started the Seles Gadson Health Equity Mini Grants and put out a call for them. Immediately we got like 3 projects, and now we have 12 projects. The application deadline was yesterday. This is not the end though. And what we can fund, we will be funding, but we'll also be looking for other ways to make those ideas. I think of her plant, Miss Pat, to make it grow and to go off to other areas. I know we can do it. So stay tuned for more mini grants available in her honor.
And Angie was going to add and give her 2 cents too about the importance of these grants.
Hey guys, listen, I'm not going to hold you guys. Thank you for staying over and doing all the things. So this Black History Month, obviously we're honoring my girl, Dr. Davetrina Seles Gadson. She stood for a field that is more honest, more inclusive, and more accountable. And she pushed us to see what gets missed, to measure what matters, and to serve people that have often been pushed to the margins. So first, we have 2 opportunities that matter a lot. The first I'm going to mention is the Georgetown Scholars Fund for the Cognitive Recovery Lab. It supports junior scholars and creates a real on-ramp for underrepresented undergrads to get research experience in stroke recovery. And that's through their Arches program. And that's a pipeline of placement and possibility. And quite frankly, it's a summer in DC. Get at them. All right. It's your time. The second one is the National Aphasia Association's Davetrina Seles Gadson Health Equity Grant Program. And that's designed to fuel projects that tackle systemic inequities in aphasia care research. That is not, you don't have to be in school to apply for that national aphasia. You just have to be willing to put in the work and do the things. So I want you guys to like, share, and do all the things, but funding is not support, it's strategy. Funding is not kindness, it's infrastructure. And funding is not just a donation, it's a decision about who gets to lead next. So my ask is simple. Give, add, share, and sponsor if you can, and help turn Celeste's legacy into scholarships that build leaders, grants that see change, and work that reaches the people that need it most. So write the check. This is what I'm saying. Long story short.
And then this is the strand that's gone through this presentation. We just want you all to think about what we can each do to promote health equity for people with aphasia. And of course, this is a conversation that would run us over very, very long.
Oh, wow.
Angie or Maura, do you have any thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up today?
I just thought that Angie had aphasia, but listening to her, obviously, it was so beautiful. And it was so, it shows too that when passion speaks, it goes beyond just the words. And so it represented your relationship with Celeste, but also your continuing to carry the torch for her. And I hope that you all heard what she was saying in terms of donating. If we get more donations at the NAA, we will provide more grants. If the Georgetown program gets more funding, they will be able to help more scholars. So please make that commitment and share. And I just feel like it's an honor. I want to thank Catherine for all the work. I know this was very personal for both of you and how you put your love and passion into this. Ask the expert. It made it really special, and I'm honored that I was get to be a part of it and
Well,
listen to Brain Friends.
Brain Friends. And listen, real quick, Mara, I love your nails. They
You.
need to know. We need to talk about it real quick. But thank you guys for everybody for coming and for hanging out and doing all the things. I really appreciate you guys. Obviously, listen to Brain Friends for sure. But keep when you see people, just recognize where a person might be. And though they might look okay, everybody may not be okay. And as mental health is a thing, how people present is a thing, but give give yourself grace and give the person that you're dealing with grace, because life is hard enough. Life is hard enough, and life is life. So let's just be kind in all the things. So thank you guys.
Thank
Thank you
you.
everybody who attended live today, and thank you everyone who's watching the recording. If you have any additional questions or thoughts, you can email answers@aphasia.org and visit our website, aphasia.org, for events, all the things, announcements that are going on. There's a lot going on. Make sure you're signed up for our newsletter as well. Thank you, Dr. Celeste, for all the work that you did, and we are going to do our best to continue your legacy. Maura, any updates? Did we happen to get any donations?
No, not yet. Not
All
yet, but
right.
I suppose we will. And once we get this out, please share it on Facebook and on LinkedIn and all the places so that people can watch it, because it is really an important watch. And thank you again. And the professional development link has been put into the chat by Catherine. So yeah, I'd like to thank Dr. Celeste too. The times I got to meet her, I just really feel like she gave us a starting place. And I'm forever grateful for that. It's a dream come true for me to be in this position. And now we're going to push it forward.
Let's get it. You're on
Thanks
point,
for joining us today, Angie.
all the
Thank
time.
you,
Bye.
everyone. Take care.
Peace, y'all.